Hello, this is MTG Sly Guy with another Magic the Gathering deck tech. Today I'll be bringing you a modern build I've been working on. So let's get right into it. It's an aggressive Mardu deck, and so far I've gone 3-1. My only loss coming against a Abzan creature-based deck, and mainly because of a pretty bad misplay, but I'll get more into that after the deck tech. Starting things off with the land base, we have 4 Marsh Flats, the black-white fetch land, 2 Bloodstained Mire, the black-red fetch land, and 1 Arid Mesa, it's the red-white fetch land. Next up, we have 2 Sacred Foundries, the red-white shockland, 1 Godless Shrine, the black-white shockland, and 1 Blood Crypt, the black-red shockland. After that, we have 1 basic plains, 2 basic mountains, and 2 basic swamp. Next up, 2 Blackcleave Cliffs. It's the black-red speedland, enters the battlefield tapped unless you control 2 or fewer other lands. And finally, 2 Cavern of Souls, just for the control matchup, and to help slightly with color fixing for casting your creatures, but mostly just for facing control. I have a lot of 2-drop creatures in the deck. Well, I'll quote-unquote a lot. More than half the creatures are 2-drops, and it's just good for things like Spell Snare, Mana Leak, things of that nature. Moving on to creature spells. Starting off, we have a playset of Monastery Swiftspear. It's 1 red, it's a 1/2 with haste and prowess. It's just a really good 1-drop. The ability to drop this on turn 1, get them for 1, and then turn 2 cast up to 2 instants or sorceries is just really good. I have a lot of 1-drop instants and sorceries in this deck, and it's really easy to, getting like 6 or 7 damage on turn 2 with the instant sorcery damage plus pumping this guy or girl, I should say, up to like a 3/4 or even just 2/3. It's just a really good 1-drop. Probably the best 1-drop to come out of Magic since Goblin Guide. So yeah, it's a playset. Next up, we have 3 Young Pyromancers. For 1 colorless and 1 red, it's a 2/1, and whenever you cast an instant sorcery spell, put a 1/1 red elemental creature token onto the battlefield. Again, with the amount of low-drop instants and sorceries in this deck, it's just really easy to fill up the board with tokens, and there's multiple uses for those tokens, as I'll get into later in the deck tech. So yeah, Young Pyromancer is a 3/of. It's just a really good card. Creates a bunch of little guys. Next up, we have 3 Dark Confidant. 1 colorless, 1 black. It's a 2/1, and at the beginning of your upkeep, reveal the top card of your library. Put that card into your hand. You lose life equal to its converted mana cost. And with a deck with such a low mana curve, you can empty your hand really quickly, so this is just really good card advantage. And losing 1 or 2 life each turn, I mean, it's an aggressive deck that can kill your opponent really quickly, so chances are, even though you're losing 1 or 2, or even 3 in some cases life, more often than not you're doing more damage to your opponent with your draws. So it's just really good card advantage. And this is the only 4-drop. This is the only one that can really hurt you with your Confidant. The only 4-drop in the deck. It's 3 Falkenreath Aristocrats for 2 colorless, 1 black and 1 red. It's 4/1 flying haste. And sacrifice a creature, and its ability is sacrifice a creature. Falkenreath Aristocrat gains indestructible this turn. If the sacked creature was a human, put a 1/1 counter on Falkenreath Aristocrat. So again, even if worst case scenario, you draw Falkenreath Aristocrat off of your Dark Confidant, you lose 4 life, but then as long as you can cast this, you have the ability to do those 4 damage right back to your opponent. Assuming they don't have flying defense, but yeah. It's just a good card. On that's it for the creature spells. Moving on to the non-creature spells. Starting off with a playset of Inquisition of Kozilek. It's 1 black, and target player reveals his or her hand. You choose a non-land card from it, with converted mana cost 3 or less. That player discards that card. So it's basically Thoughtseize for CMC 3 or less. Really good card. After that we have 2 Thoughtseize, 1 black. Target player reveals his or her hand. You choose a non-land card from it. That player discards that card, and you lose 2 life. So just it's good for hand control, good for facing control matchups or combo decks like Twin. After that we have a playset of Lingering Souls. Just a good token generating card. It's good early and good mid game because you can cast twice, cast it and then flash it back, get 4 1/1s. It's for a 2 colorless 1 white. Put 2 1/1 white spirit token creatures flying onto the battlefield, and then you can flash it back for 1 colorless and 1 black. So it's good for the tokens, like the token creatures and like the elementals you make with your Young Pyromancer are good sack outlets for making your Falkenreath Aristocrat indestructible. And say your late game, maybe your HP health is getting a little bit low, you can always sack your Dark Confidant to your Aristocrat and get the Aristocrat, put a +1/+1 counter on your Aristocrat. Next up we have a playset of Path of Exile. Just the quintessential removal card in Modern. For 1 white, remove target creature card from the game. Its controller may search his or her library for a basic land card. Put that card into play tapped, then shuffle his or her library. So gets rid of pretty much anything that is not hexproof for 1 white. Your opponent gets to search for a land, which can be a bit of a pain sometimes, like if they're kind of mana strained, but I mean it's just a really good removal card. Next up, play set of Lightning Bolt, just a premier burn spell in Modern. 1 red, Lightning Bolt deals 3 damage to target creature or player, so it's just really good. You can do it to the face to finish off an opponent, or get rid of most early drop creatures. Next up we have 2 Terminate. 1 black and 1 red, destroy target creature, it can't be regenerated. Pretty straightforward. 2 mana removal for anything that isn't indestructible. Next up we have 1 Boros Charm. For 1 red and 1 white, choose 1. Boros Charm deals 4 damage to target player, or permanents you control gain indestructible until end of turn, or target creature gains double strike until end of turn. So multiple uses for this. You can finish an opponent off by burning them for 4 in the face. You can protect your creatures from mass removal. And also, you can, either if your Falkenreath Aristocrat gets blocked, or if you've maybe got a couple of counters on it, you can, if you can draw this, say you have your Aristocrat on the field, it's a 4/1, and your opponent's at 12 life, 10 life, whatever. You can sack a couple of your humans, like your monks, your Swiftspear, your Young Pyromancer, or your Confidant. Any of the other creatures, you can sack them, put counters on your Aristocrat, make your Aristocrat really fat, give it a double strike, and swing in for the win. It's just a really good utility card that has multiple uses. Next up we have 3 Lightning Helix. For 1 red and 1 white, Lightning Helix deals 3 damage to target creature or player, and you gain 3 life. So again, it's just a good burn spell. It's a good way to finish off your opponent, plus the ability to gain life can be really handy in this deck, especially if you have a Confidant out. You might be needing the health just to keep yourself comfortable. So again, it's a 3 of. And finally, we have 2 Kolaghan's Command. This card is good in Standard. It's ridiculous in Modern. I mean, against certain matchups, it's almost always a 2-for-1. Like going against Affinity or even Tron in some circumstances if they cast Expedition Map. Or something that they can use to search up their lands or use for extra mana. And the 2 damage to target creature or player again, it's good. You can use it to finish off an opponent. the discard feature is really nice. Just pretty much every node on this, discarding a card, destroy target artifact, 2 damage target creature player, or return target creature card from your graveyard to your hand. Each node is good, and in some matchups this card is really good, like 2 for 1 good every time. So yeah, it's a 2 of. And then finally we have 1 Liliana of the Veil for 1 colorless and 2 black. She enters with 3 loyalty counters. +1 is each player discards a card. -2 is target player sacrifices a creature. And then -6 is separate all permanents target player controls into 2 piles. That player sacrifices all permanents in the pile of his or her choice. So she's really good in matchups like boggle matchups or mid-range matchups where you are able to remove most of their smaller creatures and they've got like 1 big creature out, 1 or 2 big creatures out. She's also good against control where you can make them discard cards from their hand. The one loss that I have with this deck was due to just kind of a brain fart misplay on my part, where I was facing Abzan creature deck with an opponent that had Loxodon Smiters and Wiltleaf Lieges in their hand, and I played Liliana. He had 2 cards in his hand. I played Liliana, and I +1 instead of making him sack, because he had 5 creatures out, a couple of Lingering Souls tokens, like a Kitchen Finks and a couple other things I can't quite remember. But yeah, a +1 to make each player discard a card. He discarded Wiltleaf Liege onto the battlefield, and up until that point, I was in really good shape, and it looked like I was going to win. And we were in game 3, and he put his Wiltleaf Liege on the battlefield, and it was just like, womp womp. That was really bad. So, I mean, lesson learned on my part, but yeah. Don't do Liliana's +1 against Abzan creature decks that are running Wiltleaf Lieges and Loxodon Smiters, because it can get real bad for you. But yeah, so yeah, that's the story behind my 1 loss that I had with this deck. And yeah, Liliana is a 1 of in the main board. Moving on to the sideboard. The only 2 matchups that I have come across that I think will be not the greatest. The deck doesn't do that well against other burn decks, because burn decks are just a little bit faster. So, I mean, my deck can, with the right draws, my deck can compete with the speed and efficiency of direct burn decks. But there's just a little bit of help in the sideboard for those matchups. Starting with Leyline of Sanctity as a 3 of. For 2 white and 2 colorless. If Leyline of Sanctity is in your opening hand, you may begin the game with it on the battlefield. And its ability is you can't be the target of spells or abilities your opponents control. So, basically protecting you from any burnt spells to the face. Next up, we have 2 Kor Firewalkers for 2 white. Protection from red. Whenever a player casts a red spell, you gain 1 life. So, it's pretty straightforward. You get him on the field, and it's a lot more difficult for burn decks. It can gain you a turn or 2 at least. And also, one of the other matchups that I can foresee having a little trouble with would be the hexproof boggle decks, green-white auras. So I've got 3 more Lilianas, just because the ability to play her on turn 3 and do her -2 a lot of times can shut down those boggle decks, because they usually only have 1 creature that they're just making really, really huge. So you play Liliana, you -2 her, get rid of their threat, and then by the time they're able to build up another threat, you can usually -2 her again. So 3 more of those in the sideboard just to complete the playset against hexproof decks. Next up, we have Zealous Persecution for 1 black and 1 white. It's until end of turn, creatures you control get +1/+1, and creatures your opponents control get -1/-1. This is in here mainly for the Lingering Souls decks, or other token strategies that will make a bunch of 1/1s with their Young Pyromancer or what have you. A lot of times, if I'm facing a creature-heavy deck too, it's nice because it's able to make my creatures bigger than their creatures and make my tokens bigger than their tokens. A lot of times just destroy their tokens outright. Take care of all the Young Pyromancer tokens and all the Lingering Souls tokens. So it's just a good 2-minute instant to swing a nice combat trick in my favor. Next up, we have 2 Crackling Doom, just because it's a really good card. Gets by hexproof as well, so if I'm facing off against a Boggle deck and they've got a huge dude out on the field, I can cast this and get her on hexproof, and also get in some nice damage. Next up, we have 1 Duress, just for the control matchups and burn matchups. Target for 1 black, target opponent reveals his or her hand. You choose a non-creature, non-land card from it. That player discards that card. 1 Fulminator Mage. I'd probably have a second Fulminator Mage in here, but I only have 1. It's 2 hybrid black-red and 1 colorless. It's a 2/2, and sacrifice it to destroy target non-basic land. This comes in against Infect and Tron mostly. Just good land destruction. And finally, just 1 more Kolaghan's Command, just because it's that good. Against certain matchups, it's just really good, and you want to have a 3rd one. So that concludes my deck tech for my Mardu modern build. I'm still working on it. I've only played it a few times, 4 matchups so far, but I have a lot of fun with it. So far, my loss came again against Abzan creature-based deck. I've beaten Infect, I've beaten Tarma Twin, and what was my other matchup? I can't even remember what my first game was against. Anyway, I took it to Friday Night Magic last week, and I went 3-1. So, I mean, it's a really fun deck. It's what I like about it is it's different. You know, the Johnny in me, I'm a bit of a quote-unquote rogue deck builder, and it's not a deck that I've seen at my local game store. And it got a lot of interest from the other players. A lot of people were interested in it and wanted to see what was in it and how it ran and stuff. So it's just a lot of fun. I really like when I bring decks to events and other players are like, whoa, that's neat, let me see that, how does that work? You know, yada yada yada. It really makes me feel good. And so yeah, I just wanted to take this time to share that with you. And as always, feel free to like this video and comment on anything that you would do differently or things that you liked about the deck. And please take the moment to subscribe to my channel. It's really cool. I'm just a small channel guy. I only really do this in my my spare time rather. But so yeah, hopefully I can get some nice likes and subscriptions. And again, thank you very much for watching my deck tech, and have a wonderful day. Bye bye.